afternoon, everyone. Welcome to FutureKonnect webinar organized by RealtyNXT. I'm Radhanjali Rawal. I'm the host for the webinar. I would like to welcome all the speakers today, Ms. Prakriti Poddar, Managing Trustee, Poddar Foundation, Ms. Arushi Sethi, Founder and CEO, Trijog, Ms. Richa Singh, CEO and co-founder, YourDOST. This session will be conducted by Kritika Singh Rawat, CEO and founder, RealtyNXT. To all the attendees, if you have any question, please share in the Q&A box. We will take the questions post discussion. Before we begin, I would like to inform that the session will be recorded. The topic of the panel is mental health is very important for today's entrepreneurs as well as real estate developers. Now, I would request Kritika to please take forward the conversation.
Thank you, Radhanjali. I think I'm seeing attendees have started to join in. Thank you, everyone, to join us for this very important discussion. So before I begin, throwing questions to you, I want each of you to tell us about your journey, what led you to here in particular platform, and especially talking about mental health awareness. And I would like to start with Prakriti, ma'am. If you could let us go through exactly about your journey and what made you talk about mental health as so passionately as you do always.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here and to actually interact with all of you and my lovely panelists as well. Since we're all motivated and inspired by mental health, there's a unity of sorts. I started my journey in mental health very early. I think it was in 2000 in Canada when I started my company, Mind Over Image Consulting. Even there, the keynote was, it's not a makeover, it's a mind over. And as you can imagine, I'm 45, so I've been working in this field for a really long time. And when we assume that the stigma is so high now, imagine what it was like in those days, right? And even if it was Canada, it was the same thing. So therefore, the company was repurposed as an image consulting company, and because the keynote was, it's not a makeover, it's a mind over, I would work on the mental health aspects of the individuals that would come for treatment and work towards actually giving them a holistic outlook, because you can't look beautiful outside if you're not feeling great inside. So we kind of like worked with that. When I came back to India in 2002, and my work started rolling, but again, people didn't recognize mental health, so it became corporate training. So I did a lot of corporate training with leadership development and skill development and personality development, and kind of repurposed it in that way, but it was always mental health. And then the family has a foundation, and in 2016 I repurposed it only for mental health. So education dropped off and arts dropped off, and I said, it's just not. This is what I want to do. This is what the foundation has to do. Nobody's really doing it effectively, and so we started to just work on mental health awareness with schools, BMC schools, like the economically weaker sections were mainly my target audience, because I find that if I work with people across India, there's a better chance of upliftment. And that's what we started doing. It wasn't for the elite. Of course, I have a clinic, and that clinic has psychological counselors and therapists of all kinds. In fact, it's an integrated mental health lab, which also has neurofeedback and a whole lot of technology-based applications for mental health. And during the times of COVID, so now we have three practices in mental health, or rather 3 organizations in mental health. And Silence Toro is one of our large campaigns in the Poddar Foundation, which is all about break the silence around mental health disharmonies. And we do a lot of programs and a lot of initiatives and slam poetry through there. We make sure that it touches the lives of everybody, especially the youth, because India has a large population of youth that are suffering. In fact, we are known as the capital of depression amongst our age group. And I find, given our heritage in peace and well-being, it appalling that we're not able to maintain those standards across board. The elderly, for example, 47% of the elderly are depressed. So we do a lot of work around that as well, because our idea of the foundation is really to bridge the gaps. So prevention is really to teach them young, teach mixed ability classrooms, teach people the ability to actually raise the mental health quotient or understanding and awareness. So it's really advocacy. And like I said, the clinic runs as it is. And we have Poddar Wellness, which is my latest, maybe 2 years old company that does holistic well-being verticals of well-being around. So Mind Over Image is a part of Poddar Wellness, and the wellness company does the mindset. It does physical health, nutritional health, the recovery programs, as well as financial well-being. So it's a complete circumference of well-being, because we realize that if one vertical drops, all the other verticals also fall. So mindset cannot be, or like you're doing in this particular event. You know, the financial well-being is causing stress, and entrepreneurs are feeling very disenchanted. So we understand that these links are there everywhere. So we built a business around that, and that is mainly online. So a lot of that is technology enabled solutions for mental well-being. So this is really my journey.
Nice. So Arushi, if you could also just let our viewers know about your journey and how you came to, be spoken about the mental health awareness around.
So thank you so much, firstly, for having me here. And thank you so much for everybody belonging here together. It's so nice to be amongst our lovely panelists and being able to share the space. I think for me, it was a journey of life and death that started on very early. So I actually come from the mass media and communications background. For me, it was in 2015 when I found myself battling between life and death at the epicenter of Nepal during the earthquake, the 7.9 that had wrecked the entire country. I was there and I got rescued, and I got one more life in the rescue operation. It was then when I was brought back to our country, India, when I met my best friend, anxiety, and my tryst with mental health began. It was that time I learned something which I'm going to be sharing about a lot in this talk, the circle of control. What was in my control and what was not in my control. I could either have taken that anxiety and let it have been the end of me, an end of everything that, had to come. Or I could have learned how to cope with it and make sure I take that anxiety and turn it into the light for million of others, so that they can know how they can cope with the things that they are going through. So for me, I was very blessed and fortunate that I had my mother by my right hand side, who is a clinical psychologist, and she has over a 35-year experience in the field right now. So जब भी मेरा दिल घबराता था, she would be there. But जब भी सबका दिल घबराता है, who is there? Who are we even talking to? And that was the birth of Trijog. The idea of Trijog was to bring about a perspective shift from illness to wellness, because we all need to be given
Arushi, your net, I think the voice is breaking now.
I believe there is a slight connection on my end. I will just look into it after I share this and we get on to Richa's story, so that it does not happen again. Yeah?
Yeah, because I'm getting messages from attendees. I think your voice in between is, I think because of the internet connection, I suppose. So maybe
Sure,
later
I'll just look into it.
Yeah, later you can join and let us know more on this front. Till then, Richa, could you just...
Yeah, just give me 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll be back.
Thank you everyone for having me here. Very, very happy to be, sharing my own story and learning a lot from you. For me, it started more with a personal experience. I do not come from the field of psychology. In fact, I have done my engineering from IIT Guwahati. When I was in college, more than 12, 13 years back, a friend of mine committed suicide because she anticipated maybe she would not get a good placement much before a single company had come to campus. And we did have some support in the campus as a counselor, as a psychologist, as a psychiatrist, but not many people would go to them. There was, in fact, to be honest, that was that recession time of 2008, and we were all going through a lot of stress, but nobody had that, courage to go out and seek support. What will people think of me? People might make fun of me. पागल लोग जाते हैं counselors के पास and things like that. Also, when we maybe were going through a tough time at late in the night at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, there was no support available. I think that was what got me intrigued into the subject. I think the question for me that still remains, and I think that's the whole premise of building YourDOST, is what is that we could have done differently to save? What is that I, as a friend, as an individual, would have done to maybe make sure that this didn't happen? That our journey started. Like I said, I don't come from this field. I had absolutely no exposure to this field. When I went out and I started, I think thanks to this community, I started reaching out to them, understanding what do they do, why are people not approaching them. I think another question to me was, I went and spoke to a lot of my own friends and the circle that was there around in the college. You understand, because I personally have gone through a lot of times, right? I would always feel that pressure saying, hey, I want to speak about it to someone. But I never got that courage to maybe go out and talk about it at that point in time. But very similar feedback came from my own friends as well. Then I said, okay, maybe I'm friends with only that sort of people. And we did a survey. I think we did a survey with some 5,000 plus people. But the response was something similar. I think 90% of the people said, they felt the pressure. They wanted to go out and seek support, but were never able to go out and seek support. I think that was the beginning. Like I said, that was the beginning of YourDOST, even though we started as an organization only 5 years back, less than 5 years back. But I think we are on this. This was something that we held on to. We always thought that we wanted to do something to solve it, to make it better. And we started meeting a lot of counselors, did this research, and realized that we also used to write a lot of awareness. I think as a fact of a lot of counselors will share the case studies with me, and I will put up on a blog, and a lot of people started reading it. Right? And they were like, I'm Radha from this story, I'm so and so from this story. And unfortunately, given that I did not have that background in psychology, I did not know how to use the technical terms. So it was a very normal story, right? And people connected with it. I think with that, we said if we could combine technology, which is at the fingertips of everyone these days, with psychology, maybe we could help and support a lot of people before things got settled. With that, we started out YourDOST almost 5 years back as a technology platform where people could be completely anonymous. So I could call myself Superman, Batman, whatever I like. And I could seek support and guidance from professionals. We have 900 plus trained professionals who are psychologists, counselors, career coaches, life coaches. And people can have one-on-one sessions with you. It could be video, it could be telephonic, it could be chat-based. We also have our centers at a lot of cities, so people can also have face-to-face sessions. Apart from that, we also do a lot of awareness programs through workshops, through coaching sessions, through a lot of self-help and so on. I think guys, the whole idea is very, very simple. How I think the whole vision is how we all go to a gym or maybe go for a run, right, to be physically fit. Can we take care of your emotional well-being, in a way that it is not just for that small percentage of people who are going through a stress or a depression or an anxiety. It's regular people like you and me. We're all humans. Humans are vulnerable. Whenever we are going through a tough time or there is something that we want to improve ourselves on, can we go out and seek support and get better? Right? Can we get better every day? I think that's all that we're trying to do. That's a little bit about it.
So that's great, knowing about YourDOST, and I'm sure everyone would know more once they log in. It's a great platform. So I see Arushi has joined us. So Arushi, if you could just, add in where you left from.
Yes. So, as I was saying, and that was the birth of Trijog. It was about 5 years back that we formed our company. And we started in our humble beginnings, like I think everybody. it was, I think, the kind of service that Trijog was giving to the industry. We were moving it from a marketplace that was very unstructured to being structured. Wellness organizations didn't exist back in the day. And I think that is something that Trijog brought into the Indian society. So that is how our journey began, where we were doing therapy for children, adolescents, adults. Organically, our business spiraled into serving corporate India and education India, and completely being online and, serving mental health through technology. So today, I think we have serviced over 34,000 lives and minds. Our campaigns have globally reached over 7 to 8 million people, and we're a team of 65 strong. So that is our service to the country, and that is what that is the path that all of us are on. So this topic becomes very interesting because for all of us, we have had to also do so much reinventing in just about 45 days. And that is when you know that you truly need to be resilient. And I think every characteristic of an entrepreneur really kicks in. So yeah, that is what Trijog's journey has been.
Thank you, Arushi. So just to ask about the YourDOST, as you were telling, anyone can become a Batman or Superman. That's a great way to put and be anonymous and talk about the discussion. So I wanted to understand today, in today's time, what kind of entrepreneurs, not just what kind of entrepreneurs, but what kind of topics are being brought up by these entrepreneurs when they reach out to YourDOST in terms of, are they being stressed about the current situation? Like, we need to understand the mindset, what they are right now facing, which maximum people do not know, that entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate developers, their particular domain sector is also getting affected very hugely because of this lockdown. And just to know what kind of queries have been coming and pouring in YourDOST about it.
So we do, I think, so as an organization, we do work with students, we work with a lot of employees, both young, maybe manager level or very senior executives. We also work very specific programs for entrepreneurs. We also do a lot of work with people from low income background and maybe migrant workers, health workers, and so on. So very interestingly, I think before our discussion, I was actually looking at some of our data because, so we have been doing this program for a while. So we've been supporting entrepreneurs for a while now, for almost 2 years or so, which is a very dedicated program just for entrepreneurs, where we work with them on their goals over a period of, say, 6 to 8 weeks, such that they become more resilient, helps them in dealing with their negative thought process and so on. And I think before lockdown, the sessions were more around how do I manage my time, my work-life balance is becoming difficult. How do I manage my relationships both with the spouse and also with a lot of co-founders themselves, right? Because I think they started with their friends or just someone at that point in time, and suddenly the business has become bigger and there is a lot of difficulties and they're finding it difficult to adjust. So that was primarily till now what the sessions were more about. I think from the last 45 days, the sessions have primarily been around how they're facing a lot of financial difficulties as well. Saying, I have to, we were break even at some point in time, but now there is difficulties in managing the cash flows, which is causing a lot of stress. I have to let go of a lot of people, which is causing a lot of stress. The fact that earlier they could either work from a co-working space or their own offices and had a system around and people who understood what they did, and suddenly now they are all sitting at home. Probably not everybody in the family is also understanding the kind of issues I'm going through or the kind of work I do and the pressure it puts on me. I think that has been extensive kind of sessions that we are seeing happening. I think another thing that we are seeing happening is my personal finances, right? I think this is something that as entrepreneurs, I think some of us would have also done, where we said, what company isn't doing so great at some point in time, we would not take any salaries, or we would maybe, if there is some profits remaining or some remaining, once things become stabilized, that's when we will maybe draw out some salaries, right? And when this happens towards the end of the financial year, when the COVID outbreak happened. So a lot of issues around that, personally also my finances are hit. Like I literally, I've poured everything that I had in the company, and now I don't even, I'm not even paying myself salary, and that is also, it's becoming for me too difficult to sustain my family. Those are some of the major things that I see.
Okay. So basically this gives us awareness that there are a lot of inquiries coming in from entrepreneurs, and even I'm sure the businessmen and real estate developers.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
everyone, and as you brought it up, personal finance is something which is bringing everyone a bit of a, letting employees go and managing the capital is something which is right now bringing a lot of stress, I would say, to each one of us, and especially our entrepreneurs out there. So Prakriti ma'am, I wanted to ask, this creates awareness what is exactly right now going in the mindset of the people, especially our entrepreneurs. But I wanted to ask, you've been in this field for so long, and I'm sure there'll be many case studies you have, come across. Is there any particular case study where you would have, seen the problem of certain person and you would have helped, or is there any kind of case study you would like to share that help the person come out of that stress or such anxiety, when, especially from entrepreneur front, when they face such situation where they are completely helpless and they're not able to, maintain that balance when it comes to your work and mental health?
Thank you so much for the question. Even just during this time of COVID-19, we started a helpline, which is called the Wellbeing Volunteers United. It's a collective where a lot of people came together to provide their support and be able to, take the calls on distress. So it's a distress helpline. We get over 700 calls a day. A lot of those calls we've kind of weaned into different buckets. So let's just take the bucket that is on entrepreneurs, because of course we have distress in terms of food, we have distress in terms of relationships, in terms of caregivers, in terms of work-life integration, not work-life balance because there isn't any right now. So work-life integration, and really just how to manage self-care. I know before this we were talking about build your immunity. Building your immunity comes with removing the dis-ease in your mind and creating harmony in your mind, body, and spirit. So just taking into account this, we've been working with people to first help them identify that their self-worth doesn't equate with their net worth. So how they feel about themselves is not fundamentally looped in with the monetary suffering that they're feeling. So we disassociate the two first, because the moment that we take a client and they're presenting issues such as this, and let me just give you some stats. 70% of people at least are going through monetary suffering. I'm not taking the rest because there are far more, but they've always suffered. So we're taking from the people that are suffering, that we're not suffering from monetary stress, is about 70%. 71% and over that have actually looped this in with depression. So depression has become a response to the monetary suffering, which is not really, it's not a norm. It's not a generalization. So therefore, it doesn't have to equate to that. So we generally look at where are these verticals and where are they interwoven. Dysphoria, of course, we can see that across the board. So with every case that we have in terms of entrepreneurs who are calling in, dysphoria, which is, just the feeling of dissatisfaction, feeling of hopelessness, what you're talking about, helplessness, all these kind of things come under dysphoria. 90% of entrepreneurs are going through that. 90% of entrepreneurs is not a low number. It is very high. So even if people have the back end of financial reserves, there is still a dysphoria around it because they're unable to grow. Of course, we're not talking about technology-enabled companies that are only doing that work and still have magnified the outreach based on that. But that is, again, not even 10%. Then we're seeing anxiety, which is playing out. And anxiety is something which either can become pathological or can be just, your regular day-to-day anxiety, which is somewhat healthy. So we're talking about eustress and de-stress and distress, and how do we actually work on de-stressing this. So if you just take from it for the point of view of this conversation, you take the upside or really the downside of entrepreneurship. It's always been there. So when we're dealing with entrepreneurs, in any case, we're dealing with how do you build their resilience. So if you take case A, for example, and he comes in and he's talking about, and I'm generalizing this only because a lot of the cases are similar, and all these people, all of us on the panel will vouch for that, because we are all going through similar things. So I want to make sure that it's not focused on the one case study, but focus on on the parameters of statistics from the case studies that we worked with. Resilience is the first angle that we work on. So resilience really, is, we already know that in corporate India, and everybody's been working with corporate India here as well, 45% of people were anyway depressed or going through challenges emotionally in the company. So it's aggravated. So you've gone from something that might even have been latent to something that is just, blown itself out of proportion, but it's always been there. I want everybody here who's listening to us to understand that this is, yes, an aggravated state, but it is a state that was present. And if you found that it was latent, now it's become magnified, it's really time to put all those wheels in motion that cause you to grow beyond it. The pressure that you feel, the pressure that entrepreneurs feel when they come to us and they talk about this pressure that they're going through is really connected to how they've added the worthiness of themselves in this. So which is why I started with the statement of self-worth is not net worth, or net worth is not your self-worth. Because there's so many different paradigms that they can grow themselves in. So when we're working with somebody, we actually get to the core of what it is that's causing this kind of suffering. Because this kind of suffering is yes, felt uniquely, but there's a paradigm that we work with, and it's called the care journey. Okay, so each individual that comes in, we talk about what are the concerns that is really happening, what are they going through, what does that concern really mean? That's the C. What is the A, which is the appraisal, appraising yourself and figuring out what does the situation really lead to. Am I magnifying it? Is it disproportionate to what it is? And that is what we need to look at, because if it's disproportionate, are we looking at whether whether it is in our circle of, whether we can control it or whether we can't control it? Environmentally, we can't control what's happening. We can only control our internal self. So if we control our internal self, how do we appraise what we need and what we don't need? How do we raise our natural defenses towards this? Raising your natural defenses, again, takes a holistic point of view of making sure that your diet and nutrition is maintained, that your exercise routine is maintained, that you're having your supporting systems of, like, say, vitamin C, etc., etc. You're exercising so that so your hormonal levels also get balanced. There's so many things that come into how do you raise it. Also keep journaling. Journaling becomes these activities that need to be done to be able to maintain an equilibrium. So when you're really talking about this, we're working on what is a regular stress situation, what is this aggravated, chronic, sort of pathological situation that's taken place, and work towards minimizing there, using the care routine to be able to do that. So optimal functioning, like I said, of stress is okay, because it's also caused us to, like Arushi said in the past, she's changed the way in which she's working because it's allowed her to become more flexible, because her positive reactors are far greater than her negative reactors. And that's really what we're trying to get the entrepreneurs to, like really understanding how do you build that sense of self? So when we're working with them, we're looking at what is it? Is it biological? When we break it down with the people that are coming to us, is it biological, the kind of stress and concerns that they're going through? Is it psychological? Is it something that is in their self-esteem, in their adaptability, in their flexibility, in their identity, or is it social cultural? So social cultural in India, unfortunately, there's so much pressure put on success that it's actually social cultural. A lot of the depression. Failure anywhere else in the world, I mean, you take a first world country, failure is actually something that they write about, they enhance, they make sure that, it's a stepping stone to success. And here, failure, like even Richa mentioned, her friend actually assumed she might not do as well, not even fail, as well as she wanted. And she committed suicide based on that. Look at the pressure. So therefore, the pressure that we're putting, again, goes back to self-worth, not equal net worth. This kind of of negativity that we build is social culture. And when we look at and work with these people, really understand what the symptoms are, where they're coming from. And this is all self-inquisition. So luckily, you don't need another person. You don't need Arushi, you don't need Prakriti, you don't need Richa, you don't need any of us. You need to be able to understand where is it coming from, where does it lie, and what is the effect of it. Is it causing worry? Is it causing irritability? Is it causing something in your physiology? Is it causing lightheadedness? Is it causing difficulty, palpitations? What is it causing? Cognitively, is it causing you to get sort of defocused or get confused, or have these attack-like symptoms? Is it causing a behavioral concern where you're actually avoiding looking at what the strategies could be going forward? I mean, these are the kind of questions that you can ask yourself. And for them, I'm sure, and Arushi is more interested in the therapy aspect of it, so she can highlight again her cases and base it on therapy. But really, Socratic questioning is available online, where you question, listen, what is in your control and what is not in your control, and what kind of effort do you want to put in the things that are in your control, using the Pareto principle, utilizing, okay, if I put 80% of my time, no, if I put 20% of my time in good practices, will I get 80% of my results? And that's really, where rationality versus irrationality comes in. And you work on, is it rational for me to think that if I just moan and criticize this time, that I will be successful? Is it rational to think that? It's not rational. It's not going to get anything. You're not going to be successful just thinking about the fact that this environment has to change, then I'll be successful. Because people have, and hopefully, we can start just with this also, support groups where we're talking about how we utilize this time to look at the silver lining, to build our systems of technology. And of course, real estate is land. My husband's in real estate, so I see this very closely. I mean, he runs Poddar developers, so I see this very closely in what's really happening to real estate. Because real estate, unfortunately, if there's no workers out there and you can't go out and you can't raise funds, there is a mega stop. But what can we do in terms of the processes that we're organizing in our offices? What can we do? I mean, he's brought down his expenditure so much. There's ways of talking to people, like even if rent is something that is causing you a disharmony in your financial well-being, talk to the landlords, communicate if it's causing you problems with your employees. We're teaching people how to communicate transparently to their colleagues at work, because that will build the camaraderie, because we are all in this together. I mean, this is the epitome of Indian spirituality, where the Maya comes to play, and we understand that Vasudeva Kutumbakam is really happening here, where we're globally sort of interacting with spaces, and every one of us is impacting the other. And when we build that transparency around that, I think the entrepreneurs here will be able to stand a better chance of success. And I'm going to leave it there, because like I said, if you let people go, they can carry on for 40 minutes on things. So I'll let Arushi.
You rightly said about socioculture, because as an entrepreneur myself, I completely relate to that, because the kind of pressure in terms of unnecessary result. Like as an entrepreneur, I would say that even when I started my own company, there was milestones already set by other people.
Yeah.
By this year, you should be able to achieve this. By this year, you should be able to get funding. That's another thing. If you're not funded by outside venture capitalists, you're not successful. That's another, jargon to define what entrepreneurs are facing, especially in India.
Okay.
If you're not funded, there's something wrong with your business model. And I completely get when you're highlighting social culture, because this is what maximum of us are actually facing, which is not in our control, right? And it's completely given, like it's like an outside unnecessary pressure, you might say, unnecessary milestone, defined for us, which leads to, I'm sure like everyone out there might be agreeing to this, that it leads to a certain pressure. It definitely leads, because you are not able to control. It's not in your control. And the other thing which you rightly said is net worth, which is, it's not important than your self-worth. And I think this is really good intake, which we should even highlight data. I think you should also talk about it as in a master class, because people are defining that. Your self-worth is not that important compared to your net worth. That's what people are taking it completely in a wrong sense. So I completely agree those points you mentioned, because I can definitely relate to those. And I'm sure if I'm relating to those points, everyone out there must be. So Arushi, from your side, I wanted to know that uh, in terms of be case study or in terms of the experience wise, when you're dealing with the entrepreneurs out there, what is the best way would you say that, you know, you have helped them out or you have seen such cases around you? Arushi, you there with us? I think. Anyways, when she joins, we can ask her. So, as I was discussing that, you know, what you defined was completely very relatable. So, I would say, coming to that particular point also, in this during the lockdown, everyone says, as you said, the entrepreneurs are facing these problems. How would you say they could reinvent themselves when it comes to, you know, anxiety disorder, when it comes to the stress? What would you say to how we as entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs, can reinvent themselves? Prakriti, if you could take this up, and then uh, we can pick it later with Richa as well. You're muted.
Sorry. So there are many allies and approaches to this. And I think first, let me just talk about the ones that are not clinical. Okay? Because the ones that are not clinical really allow you to optimize your well-being. Okay? So when you wake up in the morning, you have some practices, which may include scheduling your activities. Okay? Which may include, when I'm talking about scheduling your activity, I also mean scheduling your exercise, your schedule. Oh, Arushi is here. Let Arushi finish what she had to say before I come back.
Guys, I really apologize for this, but I guess there are some things that are in our control and some things out of our control. And today my internet is just not compliant. So I hope this is the last time the internet back and forth is happening. But yes, I'm happy and ready to take on your question. Whatever you had for me. I'm sorry I could not hear the last
So I was
15 seconds.
Yeah. So as Prakriti ma'am was telling, you know, how net worth is not your equivalent to your self-worth, which was a great intake which we could take from. And as entrepreneurs, everyone is actually governed, or would you say, has this socio-economic pressure coming from outside, which is not in our control. So I wanted to ask, in terms, be case study wise, or in terms of the current entrepreneurs which you're dealing with, in what scenario you would say that you are helping them out, or there's this particular pattern which you have seen that you would like to discuss? Any case study you would like to share with us?
Definitely. So I think how Prakriti said rightly, firstly, it's not about one particular person that we're dealing with or not, because we're dealing with a 90% mindset right now, which we all find ourselves in as well. So the first thing I would like to take our attention to is that entrepreneurs have chosen this path because innately they're risk takers and display resilience. They chose a path of entrepreneurship because it is challenging, and they know that they are going to get set up with challenges and they're going to face challenges, and they got into it in the first place because they wanted to do so. So I think we need to take our current situation, what we are facing, the pandemic that we're in, as a challenge itself. We cannot define or predetermine the intensity of a challenge. We only know it once it presents itself to us. But when we do find ourselves amidst these challenges, this is what I think we have learned to do. There are four things, and that is something I would tell everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are working with a startup, whether you're working for yourself, or whether you're working anywhere else. Four things. One, pause. It is very important to see things as they are. Second, accept. Only when there is acceptance of your now and reality is there moving on. Before we accept things in life, you can never move on and from them, even to a solution oriented approach, because where is the acceptance? So, knowing that this is our here and now is very, very important. What happens once acceptance comes in? Once acceptance comes in, we need to reevaluate everything, because it is asking you to. You need to see the opportunity that you are getting during this time. You can rechange your expenses, you can rechange your patterns, you can actually get your strategies back to what they were not, what they were not matching, or things that were not happening. You will have to change ways, because if you don't move with time, time will leave you behind. So reevaluate and reevaluate everything. When you are done reevaluating, that is the time we come to reinvent it. And how does one reinvent? How do you reinvent? I mean, I'm not feeling good right now. I'm feeling low. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling anxious. Of course, we all are having those pool of emotions. What causes depression? It is excessive bouts of feeling lonely, sad, low moods. What causes anxiety? Anxiety is primarily caused by two things. One, uncertainty, which is the first and the main cause of anxiety. And the second thing that that also increases our anxiety is things not being in our control, and any situation that we find threatening. So at the moment, we are finding our situation threatening. We're finding that things are out of our control. We're finding that we're feeling different bouts of emotions. So it is very easy for the mind to feel disturbed. During this time, if we want to reinvent, this is the one thing that we need to be taking care of: our thoughts, because our thoughts generate our feelings, and our feelings lead to our action. And if we want to reinvent, we need to come back to the circle of control, like Prakriti and I were talking about. What are the things in your day that you can do? Start small. Make your goals short-term goals, right? Begin small. Today, what is it can you do? You need to build your immunity to be able to have a more positive outlook. Let's even pause with a positive outlook here. Let's talk about our two styles of beliefs and thinking. So we have a rigid thinking and we have a flexible thinking. If every one of us, everybody today was rigid and said, no, I'm hopeless, I feel hopeless, why is it happening to me, what will I do about it? You will keep being there. Are these thoughts helpful? They are unhelpful thoughts. So would you like to take your unhelpful thoughts and have a perspective shift towards helpful thoughts and maybe a flexible approach? That yes, now that I do find myself in this situation, I will maybe have to move from certainty to probability. There is no certainty that things will be the way you imagined, but hey, there is a probability that it will be if you may. And if you want to may, you have to be taking care of the little things right now, like including routine into your daily, having a routine, coming back to structure. Now let's come to adapting, because that is what will help you survive. That is what will help you transform. So 10 minutes of exercise. Why the exercise? Come back to the why, and how is it building on yourself, like Prakriti was saying very correctly, and then it will have an impact on everything else. 10 minutes exercise, endorphins are released in the body, automatically you feel good, right? Your hormones are talking to you, you feel better. Self-care, 10-minute meditations, 15-minute breath work. If you dedicate just this much time, you see how productively you'll be able to do your work even. Compartmentalize your days, your responsibilities. If you have to work from home right now, keep time, balance there is no balance right now, that none of us have a work life balance, but create your universe within what you can right now, because that is all you're in the control of doing. So I would definitely say pause, accept, reevaluate, and then reinvent, because that is what we've been set out to do as human beings. Where everything feels very uncertain, where we can always look to motivation from the nature, because the sun has been setting for billions of years and it rises again. A cloud is ever changing. Autumn goes, spring comes. So it's all always reinventing. Those are the laws of the universe. And I think if we just lived our everyday accepting those laws, we would find ourselves in a better place.
It's rightly put out there. Prakriti, what I understand is if we are reinventing ourselves, correct me if I'm wrong, what I understand what Arushi said is everyone needs to follow a certain discipline then, right? To have that kind of discipline, even when you're working. I see those small things, if I do, and if even my spouse does, like if we change our clothes and sit, okay, this is my work hour, I'm going to be in my proper attire, because it might, maybe in our head, we want these small motivation to keep us motivated. So what's your intake in Reinvent? Discipline is, I feel, is a very important role. What is your take in that?
Definitely stick as closely to the routine that you would have had even before the lockdown. So wake up in the morning, do exactly what you would do, get ready exactly the same way. If you wear makeup, wear makeup. If you wear a good, a lovely suit, wear it. Utilize, you already have these things are in your control, right? So as we're talking about what's in your control, what's not in your control, food, how you would eat, like when you are sitting at home, chances are you're munching a lot more than you would when you're in office. Please don't do that. Okay, because the moment you start feeling, the moment weight starts coming on you, you're going to get into another spiral, because food eating disorders also are mental health issues. And if you eat right, you're giving yourself the right nutrition. One of the things I constantly tell people is input equals output. So what you put in, whether it's what you're putting into your sense. So even if you're watching like some mundane, Netflix, which is not adding any value, please don't do it. You have control over what you take in. So the environment, like when we're talking about, because when I do therapy as well, and when we're talking about genes and conditioning is happening every day. And you have the capacity to define what kind of conditioning you want. So if things are not adding value to you, please don't do it. And when you are looking at, how do you build your self-resilience, one of the key things, and again, social cultural, is your ability to say no to things. And I find that again in India, and I say India because I've done this work everywhere else also. But in India, we don't know how to say no. We don't know how to say, no, I'm done. I cannot eat anymore. Thank you very much. We don't know how to say no to, people demanding things out of us. On the other hand, we know how to say no to all our loved ones. And we don't know how to balance that. And so there's a sort of intelligence, wisdom that you need to build at this point. And because you're also interacting with these circumstances that you want around, you have homes where everybody is there. I mean, I have 3 children. So, I mean, you can imagine what my house looks like, and 2 dogs. So whenever I say 3 children, my husband says, no, you have 5. And it's right. I have 5 kids. I have to monitor the ticks on the dog. I have to monitor the well-being of my staff. So, you've got everything happening right now at one go. But to enhance the activities that you have for your well-being is critical. And Arushi has already mentioned that, so I won't go in there. To really identify what's causing you anxiety, when you schedule your day, recognize that you do have a family. And yes, you do have to give time. And we've got so many calls because of, intimate violence and, the kind of anger that we're taking out on our spouses. It's causing a breakdown in your communication because you're in close proximity. And, let's not talk about it from an entitled point of view. People have one room sometimes. You can't go into another room to do your work. You have to be very... you have to be structured enough to respect another person, because you're respecting yourself in turn, and you give each other like schedules where you have the right over the space in that room or the noise in that room. And these are little things that cause aggravation and annoyances, right? So let's get to the brass tacks of even entrepreneurs. I mean, now you can see the disparity because you can see on Zoom calls or on conversations what people are living like, right? So even in your workspace, I mean, those kind of stresses, please mark as not essential stressors and let that go, because that's just perception and it's not of value. Again, going back to net worth and self-worth, right? It's not of value. Identify what's causing you the stress. Build your temperance, because temperance, in terms of just building your ability to control the things you can. In fact, there's a serenity prayer, and everybody in any therapy uses the serenity prayer, which is really, I think, I'll get to the serenity prayer. I have it. But it's about understanding what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Healthy communication and healthy community development. So please find that time. I know my friends are always like, you're always working and you don't have time for us. And I recognize that they're right. And at that point, I have to put a full stop and say, you know what? Yeah, I need to take that time with them. But yet I'm juggling, okay, what are my priorities? I mean, do I take time with my children? Do I take time with my husband? Do I take time with my friends? Do I take time with myself? Because taking time for mindfulness also requires me to have the space. And a lot of people don't have that space. So what can we do in terms of building ourselves really depends on where we are in life, what our circumstances are. So therefore, there's no generalization. And in fact, a very good friend of mine, he's a psychiatrist, he always says, there's no such thing as generalization, including this. Right, so there's no generalization. We cannot generalize what people are going through. We can only build bridges which they can adopt because it's part of their conditioning. So really understanding what that flexibility and courage, because it takes courage to be flexible. So stop the violence internally. Stop badgering yourself internally. Stop telling yourself you're a failure because things are not successful at this point. Because time and tide waits for no one, and you will be moving at some point, and it will have a benefit. So you only need courage to ride this. And yes, if finances are not there, there is, or at least people are trying to build some support. I know that our distress line offers, whether it be food, whether it be services that are needed, whether it be medicines. We have an ecosystem that's providing those things. So at least your daily necessities are taken care of, and really just focus on the daily necessities. If that's being taken care of, and you don't know where to reach out, you can reach out to helplines that are available across India. This is not an India-based initiative. It's across India, and a lot of people are doing it. I'm not trying to promote, what we're doing. I'm just saying, reach out. There are avenues. Don't focus, or don't, like as the old book says, don't sweat the small stuff. Grow into the big stuff. Grow into your wisdom. Grow into your knowledge. This is the time where you can actually start to even take free courses and free activities to work on this. I'm not even talking about therapy at this point, because of course there are therapy approaches, but we're just talking about what do you need as an individual to grow. I think your last question is something about therapy, what people can reach out to. So I'll leave that for them. But it's really important to recognize that when you are feeling stress, identify the stressors, move away from the stressor, because you have the capability of moving away. You have the legs, and even if you don't have the space, you can even turn your body language and not allow a stressor to attack you, which could be in the form of your loved ones in your home, because generally speaking, you're in your house. It is to do with people around you, and we are aggravated. There's no space. There's constant stimulation. It's overstimulation that causes a lot of stress, and we're trying to focus on how to grow our business. There is a lot out there, my friends. Everybody is dealing with these demons. So really say no to the ones you don't. It's very simple. I don't need this, not helpful, let go. I don't need this, not helpful, let go. I know it sounds easy, but if you visualize it, if you write it down, and if you cancel it out, literally using these techniques, you will be able to focus on the ones that are essential and defocus on the ones that are non-essentials.
I actually wanted to add something here since we're talking about this. Reinventing is not about reinventing your circumstances. Reinventing is about really reinventing yourself. Let's wake up every morning and ask ourselves, who am I? And what can I do to be better? You need to be better and not do better. Life is not always about doing better, but being better. And you have got the space and time for the first time in a very long time to ask yourself those questions. So let's get to it. And something I learned on my journey, winning is not about reaching the finish line. Winning is about still being in the race when things get tough, because we all are going through this and we all are in it together. So let's triumph, but triumph first with self, and automatically then, with everything else.
No, for sure. I agree with that point. And also the temperament, the point which you brought, Prakriti, is really important, because personally in this space, when you're balancing your work, when you're doing other things, even that space when you're sharing constantly with your spouse, the temperament is something which I'm sure everyone faces a problem with. How you control it, how you reinvent yourself to, like, I'll be personally quoting, if I have to control my temperament rather than losing every now and then, I have started picking up painting, and it actually calms me down. It just makes me rethink of what the situation was and how I can deal with it in a more calm manner. So I think reinventing in these small steps or small details can also help us. Like for me is sketching and painting now. Like I have now discovered a new myself that I can calm myself, and it's a new nice therapy for me. So I think these small things, as Richa, you can also add, what do you feel that those things which can make everyone reinvent during this lockdown where everyone is facing such stressful time?
I think I will, one of the things that I realized, right, I think there is this whole thing in therapy that they talk about when somebody's going through grief, they go through 5 stages, right? And there's a lot of research, in fact, done by a lot of venture capitalists and social psychologists saying, hey, who are those people who have actually come out of this sort of a situation and thrived? Who are those entrepreneurs who have thrived coming out of situations like this, right? Be it 2000, be it 2008, or the current pandemic that we are in. And it had some beautiful points like that Arushi and Prakriti actually brought that up, right? Where we all go through first is our phase of denial. That, you know, it is happening to others, it will not affect me, it will not affect my own business, right? दूसरों का हो सकता है affect हो जाए, मेरा तो नहीं होगा. Then there is anger. Ki, you know, I had this whole projection and now I'm not able to achieve my targets, right? And then there is bargaining. And that is something that we see. We have been supporting a lot of companies who are doing massive layoffs in their organizations, or who have to do that because of the circumstances, and they are in that situation that, okay, maybe I start with the salary card, then maybe I only lay off certain people, and then they are like, you know, I have to do that all over again because at some point I thought this is a reset, but this is not a reset as an entrepreneur, as a business owner for me, right? I thought just in 20 days or 30 days, where it was 21 days actually, I'm talking about at that point in time, people saying in 21 days the lockdown would be over, I will be able to raise funding all over again, and you know, situations will change. Probably like Arushi and Prakriti said, certain things are under our control, certain things are not, right? And probably those are external parameters, and we need to identify what is under our control, and that actually goes against being an optimistic entrepreneur that we always are, right? We will get things done. Probably this whole pandemic is against that, right? And whole that bargaining situation is against that. We need to acknowledge that it can get worse than where it is, right? And develop our companies, our finances accordingly, right? Then it comes definitely the stage of depression, the stage of acceptance. I think the whole mind shift needs to happen, right? That we are not, right now we are not playing to win. We are just playing not to lose, right? We are just playing to be there. There might be a lot of companies which might not be able to even come out of it. And a failure of a business is not really a failure of me as an individual. I think that acceptance needs to come in, right? That acceptance that, you know, it's okay if I don't hit my, the way I expected my business plan and I expected my targets to be, that's okay. Can I survive? I think we need to focus our energy, our calculations just to ensure that, right? And then comes, I think, after acceptance is the stage of creativity, the stage of reinventing your own businesses, reinventing what you could do in this lockdown, right? Only after you've done the acceptance that, okay, I accept the situation I embrace the crisis, I recount my blessings that I still exist, then I will reinvent. On a business front I'm talking about, right? And it could be various things. I've beautifully seen companies who were very brick and mortar going online. I'm seeing businesses who were in a very different business actually going out and maybe delivering something essential, or modifying or adding business offerings which might be useful for people at this point in time, right? Consolidating their businesses so that the core can still exist, right? That's something that we do see a lot of entrepreneurs coming out to us that I'm in a non-essential service. How do I keep afloat, right? Because even if I open my shop, I'm in a luxury, let's say fitting shop, and there would be no takers, right? What can I do? First of all, I need to embrace that whole environment that I am, right? I need to know, like how Arushi and Prakriti saying, there are certain things that are under my control, there are certain things that are not, right? And then go about saying, hey, I'm not here playing to win, to make such a big organization. I'm just playing here not to lose. I'm in the arena, I need to stay afloat. I'm that person standing in maybe a thunder where, I just want to be there, let the thunder, the storm just passes by, and still after maybe 6 months or 9 months I exist, and then I will work on, taking it to the next level. But a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of businesses reinventing themselves, saying, what are some of the services that I can offer, which would be a good business line for me at this point in time. I've seen people delivering food items, essential food items, to people producing masks where they were under a very different sort of a production line. I know a good friend of mine who was into sanitary napkins, right, and is using her own machinery to actually produce masks. First of all, after acceptance, can we then be a little bit more creative and see what is that we could do to maybe stay afloat, make sure our businesses are running, and even if we come across that situation where we understand that after doing everything, our businesses, we have to let go of our business. It's okay, right? It's okay. Your business failure is not equivalent to your own failure. That's okay, right? Like she beautifully said, your net worth is not equivalent to your. You need to have your self-worth, right? That's important, right? Because maybe after 6 months you pick up something and you do something which will then further succeed, right? I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are reaching out to us where they say my things are not an essential service, and how they've actually started being very creative and started leveraging their team, saying, hey, people who are actually into essential services, why don't you use my technology team and pay me for that, right? And that allows them to pay salaries of people, that allow them to stay afloat all the time. This is also a good time for organizations who can focus on doing very focused work, focus on doing R&D where they want to do very deep building of things and so on. So I look at it and, after acceptance come the reinvention. And reinvention, of course, I think beautifully put by Prakriti and Arushi, saying reinventing yourself. I think focusing on your own self is very, very critical. And I think that allows you, that makes you creative, that you can now go and be creative and see what are the ways, avenues you can find for your own business to stay afloat.
No, I agree. So even as you brought in, technology right now is playing a very important role.
Right.
I would like to know, like, online counseling is one thing, but offline where you could meet your patients or the people face to face could help them out. During this lockdown, how are you able, or what kind of services you all are providing so that even the people, our viewers, could know and reach out? Because I'm sure technology is also completely adapted by all of you, so that anyone who is facing any kind of problem then can easily get help. So starting from Prakriti ma'am, could you tell us what kind of services right now you're providing so that people during this lockdown can still feel that I can get help?
So we have, of course, our counseling center that you can book your session for, and it's online, Zoom, depends on what people have, WebEx, Hangout, doesn't matter. There's a lot of counseling sessions that we're doing at this point. We also have, like I said, the distress helpline. So if somebody is going through something immediate and need immediate ratification of what they're going through, they can call the helpline. The helpline also does escalate if it needs to be, like if somebody has suicidal ideation and things like that and they're feeling completely stressed. We have psychologists, clinical psychologists, about 22, 23 of them online, as well as a band of psychiatrists who are also on the helpline to be able to deal with these issues. But those are issues that are coming up immediately and need immediate solutions. But if there's long-term therapy that is required of some kind, because the situation is a little more intense, we of course have CBT, we have humanistic approach, we have you've got your psychodynamic approach, and you have the systemic approach that our counselors deal with, in any case, through our center. So that's all online, so they can call in, book an appointment the same way that they would. You have the number published online as well with Mind Over Image, and reaching out to us becomes very easy in that way. We also have, like I said, the Poddar Wellness. So when companies are looking at really how do we recreate the way in which we're working, how do we entice, and this is something that we've been doing quite a lot of is really how do we destigmatize mental health in the workplace. And we're doing this online as well, shifting the focus to a well-being focus, making sure that people understand that even when they're fundraising, to please fundraise with mental health in mind, that you would be integrating mental health into your corporate workplace, because that also needs to be done. People need to understand that your KPI should also be measured on well-being parameters, and so that is something that we're working with the leaders currently as well to repurpose, because this is the time that people have recognized that mental health was not something they were looking at seriously. And even for corporates, because they were not looking at it seriously, I remember talking to so many people, like, because I've been doing this for years, saying, why aren't you like taking well-being seriously? And they'd be like, no, we are, we have this well-being program. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not really intense and you are not really getting anything out of it. I mean, just because you have like an online version of this, what is it really doing? This guy actually told me, I said, tick in the box, and I only care about that. I'm already paying them enough money. They can go out there and get their own well-being. I'm not really interested, but I know that it's a tick in the box and I'm going to do it. And I'm talking about CEOs who've said this to me so many times, because it is really just a tick in the box. But now it needs to change. It is not that that cheapest service that you can get and tick a box. It really is more intense services that you need, because the people that you need to most worry about, who are supporting you in your growth story, are your employees. And those employees need to be taken care of consistently. Mindset is one of the key aspects. And if the mindset is not towards growth and not focused towards growth, and growth in terms of holistically with your own company as well, how are you going to be successful? This is not about you ticking a box anymore. So we're working with people to get them to understand that it is greater than what they're talking about. It is not just an online service. It is an integrated hybrid approach that is required for every company to incorporate, so that you don't lose CEOs, you don't lose employees to suicide. This is like becoming rampant, and we're not like really taking this seriously. Now, of course, with this COVID, it's a conversation, but it's a conversation at best that people are doing independently. Companies need to start doing this. They need to take a recess. They need to focus on what is important, focus on understanding that well-being is really important. And it's not about one yoga class that they're doing online, or one, like meditation class and mindfulness class that they're doing online, or some call center that they've adopted, but really integrating it in the mindset of every employee and getting them to understand how this is your number one aspect that you need to look at, and then working on what are the business aspects, marrying the two to be able to move forward. And of course, that is easy to be done, but we have to change the mindset clearly of even the entrepreneur or the corporate leaders, the CXOs, who need to change to understanding that this is actually the use of their ROI effectively, and not just to tick a box, but it allows everybody who's working in your organization to come to the table as being present. And when they're present, they're professional, the support structure, they feel that you understand them, they feel that they can maintain not only your standards, but it filters down to them. There's transparency, they know you've prioritized them. There's a camaraderie that gets built. And these are not just practices that can happen ad hoc, like online services. Online services are essential because individuals cannot go everywhere. But it's a hybrid model, which means that the top management has to be involved on a regular basis with companies such as us. Of course, like I said, work-life integration and work mental well-being and holistic well-being integration is the way forward. And of course, like I said, companies can reach out to us anytime. I mean, it's all on the net. Even we also have an app that is a well-being app, which people can download and utilize. And they actually have programs on it as well. But that's too much to talk about in terms of what all we do. So just go on to LinkedIn and find me, put a message there, and we'll reach out to you and send you everything that we do.
No, we will also share, we'll get details from you, and we can also share online with everyone so that they know exactly where to reach and whom to reach. Arushi, if you also could tell us how you are, reaching or helping people right now, these through online or through technology, how during lockdown this help is still not in pause and the help is out there so that everyone would know where to reach and how to reach.
Essentially, Trijog has always run as a hybrid model. wherein we have had our entire tech interface, which is online, but we've also had our 5 physical units in Mumbai. It had also been overnight that we have had to reinvent so much in the last 45 days. And I will tell you all of the services that we continue to offer and that we started also offering. So definitely we have complete counseling for adults and adolescents. You can choose whether you want to, take on the relief counseling, which is shorter, which is about 25 minutes, or you want to go with app-based counseling, which is longer, which is a 50-minute duration. We offer both relief and the app-based in all 3 formats. It's video, phone, chat, box, and that is available over the internet. Now, what happens to our children? What happens to our students? Trijog has dealt with child and adolescent mental health for years now. What about our children who do have ADHD, who do have hyperactivity, who are dealing with ASD, who are on the autism spectrum? What about those kids? What will happen? Therapy was so tactile. So we have figured out entire models, and we are now completely online with full child therapy as well. So if it is counseling that you need for your child, programs on skill building, enhancing, understanding how they're feeling, what you can do. We're training parents so that you all can become facilitators. Because what is the one thing which is the most powerful in this world? It is knowledge. And we need to become vehicles of imparting this knowledge. That is when we will be doing our true service to this world. So our complete child wing is now operational uh, virtually, which we would not do in 30 days time, and we would have eventually done someday, but the whole thing is operational virtually. So for any and every parent that needs to reach out with for your children, definitely we are now we would service corporate India. So for corporates, we are their mental health counsel, onboarding it, where we offer an EAP, employee assistance and counseling services for all of their employees, all of the workforce. We also do corporate development webinars, which is social-emotional development on boosting your immunity, understanding your thought processes, so that you can have more informed workforces. When we come to serving our education networks, we have migrated complete counseling departments virtually. Now we manage all of it just with click of a button through interfaces, and we are doing the whole mindfulness, which is a happy curriculum virtually. So everything is reinvented. The wheel is changed. Everything is now being offered virtually. So we are your one, I think, whatever care it is which you need for your mind, whether you are a person, whether you're an institution, you're an enterprise, or your community, you can get in touch with us with one click on our website, and our team will reach out to you. They will share with you everything we do. And I think it's really important to understand that your mind matters, every mind matters, you matter. And we all and if there are people who know a little bit more in this field, let's reach out, because we all are here to support each other. And you know what beautiful thing happens with support? When you support and feel supported, you grow. So let's grow together. This is our opportunity. And like the Poddar Foundation is here, Trijog is here, and YourDOST is here. We all are right here for you, and we will continue growing together. So reach out, and we are right here.
Thank you, Arushi. Richa, if you also could add on to, what kind of services you are already is on the floor and already helping people out there if they're looking for help.
Right. So at YourDOST, it's a comprehensive emotional wellness support system. I think, so we do work with individuals. They can directly reach out to YourDOST.com, seek support from professionals about various things, right? Be it their relationship, be it from their confidence building, resilience building. It could be career and academics, career confusions, whatever it is that is bothering them or stopping them to be a best version of themselves, right? We're there to support them. So they can reach out to YourDOST.com. It could be a telephonic session, video session, chat-based session. It's available 24/7. In fact, 70% of our traffic is late in the night, probably from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. We do have a lot of physical centers also, but I think all of them have been now also completely moved online. We also work very, very extensively with corporates. where from a startup which might have like 15 people to an organization which might have like 3.5 lakh, 5 lakh people, right? So that is the range that we work with, where I think for a startup, the kind of issues that people are going through is very different from larger organizations where we not just make their employees resilient, but we also work with managers saying, hey, how do you identify somebody in your team needs help? How do you offer them support, right? Building the leaders, like Prakriti mentioned, saying, who care about their people, right? It's a community, it's a culture that needs to change, right? I believe, believe me, we find it very difficult when we actually say no to the organization where it's just a tick in the check. For us, it's very, very important that at the top there is that culture, right? That I care for my people. I believe that emotional well-being is important. So we do work with a lot of organizations. We work with a lot of colleges. We work with quite a few colleges across the country where we support the students, because a lot of students these days are also going through a lot of tough times saying, hey, will I even get placed? What, there's uncertainty in the situation, finding it difficult to even reconnect with their families because they've been so used to living on their own, living with their friends. We also do a lot of work with entrepreneurs specifically, where we have these programs which are 6 week to 8 week long, where we individually work with all these entrepreneurs individually to work on their goals, be it developing a growth mindset, working on their decision-making skills, resilient, and so on. We are also doing a lot of work, especially in this COVID times, with elderly population as well, where we are working because a lot of elderlies have been sort of where their family or their children might be staying outside the country and they are not able to travel back. They've been alone in this time and they're going through a lot of emotional challenges themselves. So we do a lot of work with elderlies. We also work with government to support people from very low income background who might not be able to, who might actually not be going to a college or a corporate or even can afford to seek counseling themselves, right? They might not have smartphones or a laptop. So we work with government to enable helpline support for such people. We are also working with government to spread a lot of awareness during these COVID-19 times. We are also doing a lot of work with migrant population who might be stranded somewhere. Again, people from lower economic background who go from carpenters to electricians to plumbers to health workers who are maybe like a housekeeping staff of hospitals and so on. We are also doing a lot of work with, especially at this time, with people, not necessarily migrant or health workers, but regular people who are stranded away from their families and are reaching out for support, because we are also seeing a lot of them going through extreme stress, right? Because they are this, I think the psychological impact of this pandemic has been huge. They are feeling lonely, they're feeling isolated. Like Prakriti said, they are in a place where, there are 3-4 people together and they don't have their spaces. They find it difficult to even reconnect or connect with them. We are also doing a lot of work with parents, where parenting has been coming up as a very strong issue at this time, saying how do I be a parent, because I have to do my own work and then I have to also take care of my child where my help is not available anymore, things like that. So I think that's the kind of ranges from institute to corporates to individuals to entrepreneurs to working with the government to be able to reach out to lower sector societies also, the kind of work that we have been doing. Anybody interested for anything, I think I can go on and on. I think in the interest of time, you could reach out to me. I'm at Richa@YourDOST.com. For any sort of support, I think we are all there. I think it's important that we talk about it. If you're going through, as a community, we support each other. Maybe you don't need an emotional wellness support from a professional, that's okay. Go talk to your friends about it, but talk about what you're feeling, right? It's important. Only when you talk about it, that's when the solutions will come. Okay? I think that acknowledging and talking about it is very important. And if you need more support for your organizations, for your institutes, for yourself,
That's great. Thank you everyone for sharing these details. I think once we put the video public, I'm going to share all the links of everyone's individual companies so that everyone should know by now that the help is still there, even if the lockdown is there. So the help can be easily reached out. It's just that you need to ask. So I will just take the attendees who are just attending right now, because the session has gone that long, but it's been very insightful, and we have got a few questions in our personal chat. I'm going to just ask that, and I'll hand it over to Mridanshi, who can ask the online questions. So one of the from real estate sector itself have asked that it's almost 50 days in lockdown. If next week I have to go to office, how can I manage myself? What are the things that I have to do to be productive and take care of myself? So starting from Arushi, if you want to take this up, and like one by one we can just help our colleague who's in real estate to understand this situation.
Right. So I think the question here is, how will you be able to get back to the work life? Is that the question here?
Yeah, he's asking if I have to now go back after this 50 days, how would I manage myself in terms of to be productive and to be able to take care of myself mentally and be able to, what I understand is how he will come up to the change which is doing right now in lockdown in everyone's comfort zone to your workspace. So
right. So I think one thing for us to notice and understand and accept is that everything is changing. So even when you go back to your workspace, it may or may not be like it did function 50 days before. So you need to see what your here and now is. So taking notice of the present moment is one thing that we will need to do. See what is your present moment. How is it that your work environment is right now? Once you take notice of your present moment, then you can understand, okay, what is this asking from me or of me? Does this, and if this requires me to be more present, then there are definitely tips and activities and strategies that you can do to, be more present. I would advise that if you want to go in with a healthy mindset, you stick to the basics. Please have exercise in your routine, have some self-care that you're doing, have time to yourself, and understand that the productivity measure of yesterday is not the productivity measure of today, because things have already changed. So your standards of productivity is what you are now assessing as per the standards of productivity that you knew yesterday. But it's all ever changed, and it's ever and it's ever new. So you will need to unlearn a few things that you were used to open the space to be able to learn a few newer things that you will come to, right? So be in the present moment, see what it is asking from you, and then you can begin to learning the new things that it requires you to by unlearning the certain things that you thought about it in the past.
If I could just add, I think it would be also nice to be flexible, like I think Arushi nicely said, be flexible, right? Go with a clean slate. And also for people who might be managing teams, you don't know what situation the other person might be in. Somebody might be using a public transport, somebody might be living in a place where there has been, like how Kritika was mentioning, that the whole building is under a lockdown because there has been a COVID positive case. So I think come with that empathy. I think be flexible. I think what worked yesterday might not work today, and that's okay, right? I think we only thrive if we have a growth mindset, right? And this is what probably the situation demands from us right now.
Even dealing with fear, we need to understand what relationship that is bringing right now. Because if you are fearful, what will that bring about? But imagine if we replace that fear with a little bit of faith. It changes the lens you see it from, and that's why the thing changes. So if you shift your perspective, the situation you're looking at also changes.
I think if I was to add to those points, I mean, we've already talked about the growth mindset, but what is really the growth mindset? I mean, what are the elements that we're looking at for even a person who is feeling like really apprehensive? about coming back to the workforce or how that would reflect. First of all, always maintain your safety standards, just because this is the COVID period. You have to maintain social distancing even while there, but remember that's social distancing, not emotional distancing, and not professional distancing either. So maintaining that, those standards, maintaining that hygiene. I know that a lot of buildings as well are changing the dynamic of like having these centralized air conditioners, because that's actually promoting, obviously COVID in terms of everybody's going to get it. So there's practical issues in place as well. There are practical issues that need to be taken into consideration, and there's no point fighting it. Actually become more sensible, because the change might be positive for us. And we may need this. This is actually sort of like an eye-opener to what really we should have already prepared for before. We are all locked in with, like, even our buildings are locked in with no ventilation. I mean, in Bombay especially. I'm sure like in other places, like I'm sure Bangalore is not as bad, but definitely in Bombay it's terrible, right? There's no ventilation. People have to like go outside of their building to get any I won't even call it fresh air, any air. But now at least we have some fresh air. So with the lockdown, I think it's time to kind of allow that change and maintain some of the things that are really good for you. Like maybe you not utilizing public transport if you have an option. Maybe actually utilizing cycling or walking if you need to. Maybe understanding that even professionally, you have to show up at the table with these standards in place. Maybe go for the namaste, which we've always done, and not go for the handshaking. Maybe utilize those practices and maintain those standards. Maintain your own individual standards. Recognize what those individual standards are. Understand how those individual standards of yours can be adapted in this time, because that's what growth mindset is. How do you adapt to the time that you have by including in these a vertical of well-being that now presents itself in this day, and really not going back to your old ways, because we were really making even the planet suffer. So let's not go back to our old ways. Let's focus on a new direction, a new way. Even when you're doing your businesses, understand what's good for the environment and work towards that, especially when we're doing construction. Like let's replant instead of just cutting our plants. Let's replant all that. Let's understand that we even the cross ventilation, the airways, the pathways, everything is conducive to maintain these positive well-being standards. If you're talking about entrepreneurship in a different way, which is just with work that you're doing. I remember I built a program with this university, which is a 150-hour program for peace and harmony, and the university changed its name to World Peace University based on the program. But the whole idea really out there was, how do you, despite whether you're in engineering, I mean, we also have an engineer here who switched to well-being, right? So take away that engineering cap and connect, not take away, but connect all the hats that you wear to well-being, and figure out how do you build solutions for a time that is positive. So do not look at how do I go back to my old way, because that's really backward thinking, literally backward thinking. Let's be forward facing. Let's think about how we can utilize what we've learned to build standards that are higher than what they were before, and make sure that you take this time to really put this mindset into practice, so that when your 15 days come, or whatever it is that we have in lockdown. By the way, this lockdown reminds me of my second child's birth, where I was on bed rest for like 7 months and told every week that I'm going to be up and about and I do not need to be on bed rest. So I'm like, how even done this? Like, this is only a few months.
You still went for a third child, Prakriti, very resilient.
Mindset. Yeah, but I mean, focus on those things. I mean, focus on prioritizing your, even your expenditure, and utilize these good aspects for yourself.
Yeah, and also maybe count your own blessings. The fact that you get to go back to job, right? The fact that you're healthy, the fact that you are, maybe living with your family, or you have your colleagues that are there with you. I think those are the right things to look at this point.
No, I completely agree. And even pointing out not to go back to how you were before. Like, reinvent yourself, and going back to office will make more sense than going back to those old same habits or patterns. That will not make anyone, I think, feel productive, or will make you feel motivated. So I think you all have put it very nicely. I hope this helps the gentleman here. So the next question is, what is the best mantra in this lockdown to think forward without making any wrong decision? So that is the complete question from him. So basically, I think he wants to.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's just
That's the thing about decisions, right? We come to know whether they were right or wrong only after they were taken. You never know why. Am I audible? Am I audible?
there is a little disturbance, Arushi.
I was there with my humor. I was saying that's the thing about decisions, right? You only know whether they are right or wrong after they've been taken. You will never know in the present moment. You always have a choice, but how the choice is played out, you will only realize in hindsight. So that is something that is a law of the universe and a law of reality. So that is my take on decisions. And I think there's a larger question here. What is right and wrong? Something that is right and wrong in your lens may not be right and wrong in my lens. Right and wrong has been backed by layers of conditioning, upbringing, and that is why it becomes so individualistic and what makes it so complex. So I would say right now, do what is making you feel safe. Whatever is being able to bring some sort of calm and centering within right now is a practice that you stick to. You do you, what works for you. Because what may work for you may not work for somebody else. But know that whatever decision you are taking, you have made a choice. And whatever consequence comes, you will go through. Yeah. So right and wrong is a state of mind. And I think that is how I look at it.
I think for me, it's very simple. It's pause, breathe, count your blessings. I'm sure there is something good happening in life. That's it, right? Let the life unfold.
I think I had said before that serenity prayer, which is an important prayer at this time, which people should really just, I found it. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that is really accurate at this point, to be able to put a lens to what you're feeling, understand whether it is something that you can change or you can't change, and understand whether the kind of serenity that you need to be able to accept the things you cannot change. I think it's a wonderful depiction of what really wisdom would require us to do.
We have few more questions, but I think we have already covered that. 2 more questions is about reinvent. So I think now, Amritanji, let's take the online questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Prakriti,
So,
please share the prayer in the chat box. I want to do that. Thank you.
Your voice. Arushi, chat box you're saying? You can open the chat box. Could you see the Q&A? There's
No, she wanted the prayer in the chat box. I'll put that there. We understand each other. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take the questions. First question is, how can I speak to and help someone with a mental health problem like depression or anxiety? So this question is from a gentleman who apparently is trying to help his friend. So he would like to know, how can he help someone with depression and anxiety? Hi.
So anyone wants to take this question up?
Right. So I have a couple of questions there. I think one, are they self-labeling it, or have they been diagnosed with depression or anxiety? Based on the situation, what I'm trying to say is, will just their help support them, or do they need further professional help? I think in any case, talk to them. I think just try to understand what is bothering them. Have a word with them. Don't. I think one of the things that I have always seen is people giving the other person ज्ञान कि ऐसे करना चाहिए तुमको ऐसे करना चाहिए कल से तुम इतने बजे उठो. This should be your routine. Everything will be alright. Right? Probably don't get into that preaching mode. Just listen to them. Your job is not to solve their problem. You're just there to listen and support. Right? And let them open up. Let them discuss what is bothering them. And if you still feel that if this person requires further support, encourage them that, hey, maybe a professional support might help. Why don't you try it out? Right? I can book a session for you, and why don't you then speak to a professional? But I think at first, make them comfortable. Don't give them gyan. Don't give them comparison that, look, that other person is going through something bad and is still doing better in life, right? You have so much nice, this, that. Don't get into that, right? Just listen. And it's okay if they don't speak to you first time, it's okay. Go back again. Ask them, how are you doing? Is there something I can help you? How are you? What are things that is bothering you? Is there something you would like to discuss, to share? And keep going back maybe twice, thrice, and then assess the situation.
I think one of the things I want to add, and I really do this all the time, I very strongly advise everybody who is listening to reach out to professionals. Do not take this on your own, because your job is to also break the stigma. Because every time, I mean, I'm in conversations in India with people, they'll always say, but we can go to our family and friends. No, you cannot go to your family and friends. There is a organizational study done behind what we do, which requires you to go to a therapist or take your friend to a therapist. Because when you do that and when you encourage this, you're breaking the stigma yourself, rather than enhancing this false idea that friendship can uphold mental health. It cannot. Because when you are going through something, whether it's you who's suffering or whether it's your friend who's suffering, and oftentimes people will come to us and say, our friend is suffering, what can we do? Whereas it's you, but you feel so upset and so stigmatized about coming out into the open. I would suggest that you utilize this just as you would be talking about your leg ache, headache, etc., etc. You will not go for your headache to your mother unless you're a kid and your mother is calling the doctor. But when you grow up and you're an adult, you will go to a professional. And there are professionals here that actually can help you. So please do not go to your family and friends as a first line of defense saying that, okay, I'm feeling really upset, but I don't know what to do about it. The next step should be, okay, let's seek help with a professional. Because when you talk to your friend, the friend often turns the mirror on themselves. So if you say, oh, I'm going through this, your natural reaction is, oh yeah, I understand. Actually, everybody's going through something like this. So you've taken the mirror away from the person who's suffering. Whereas a therapist will say, I understand what you're going through and I recognize that this is probably because of this. And how does that make you feel? And where is it, placed in your physiology, your psychology, we break it down for you, make you understand where it's placed and help you deal with that, because the mirror stays on you for a long time. And somebody who is not trained in counseling cannot do this. That is why there is a study for counseling and psychology. So please utilize, all of us here have psychologists, clinical psychologists who are certified to be able to help you. Please do not take this on your own, because it can get aggravated. We've had, unfortunately, cases which have come to us too late, which we haven't managed to save from suicide, or we haven't managed to save from aggravated mindsets, which have led to situations that are not in your control. But earlier in the day, because you do not even know if it's chemical, you do not know if it's to do with genetics. I already laid out where all it comes in. You do not know where the feelings have been triggered from. You need to come to a therapist. Please do not think that you can handle it. The only thing you can handle, apart from listening and saying, yes, I understand what you're going through, and you know that there are people who are trained to be able to help you. And I would suggest that I can come with you as well for the first time, whether that be even on a Zoom call. You can be present at that point and do the intake session with somebody if they need support. But do not think for even a minute that you're capable of supporting it. It's like me saying, yes, I understand engineering because I've used an app, and let me focus on engineering an app. It is not normal. We do not
I
know the
completely
business.
agree. People need to break the stigma, and rather than saying that, yeah, I'll help you out, let me take you to the professional, that should be the first statement everyone should be using.
It's the analogy is this, right? When you get hurt in your leg, maybe you'll do a basic Dettol cleaning, but then you will go to a hospital or get it sorted, right? Something similar. You listen. You listen to them. That's all that you do. And if you think they require further help, please take them on to a professional support. Don't be a professional for them.
I think what Prakriti is also trying to highlight here, and I am in 200% alignment and support with absolutely everything she said, is sometimes what happens with friends is they, in trying to be there, they try to offer advice as well. But every friend out there needs to realize, would you treat your friend's heart problem? Would you do the heart surgery for your friend? No, na. If I came to you with my bleeding heart and said, cure me, would you say, हाँ मैं करता हूँ, हाँ कैसे लग रहा है? नहीं करोगे ना. So hold space, but in holding space, know what that means. You're holding space to be supported and offering direction to your friend. And there is only one way of offering this direction, which is telling them to seek professional support. Because you know what? Two things will happen. When they do seek that professional support, they will feel guided, or they will realize that they have the self-coping mechanism to self-cope with themselves. But let the professional guide them to that, right? Why are we trying to disguise ourselves in trying to be there for our friends when actually we need to be there as direction for them, to tell them that, hey, go out, seek professional support. And today we all are here, all of our well-being networks are there, where so many guided professionals with qualifications are existing in our country. The change is happening, and you have to be the change for all of us to accept it. Because the more we normalize it, is the more normal it will become. And what is normal anyway? But if you have a mind, if you have a mind, you have mental health. Your mental health could be good. It could be not so good right now, questionable or severe. But hey, let's talk to the person who knows about it to understand where I'm at. It's really as simple as that.
And even just reaching out for information, like for example, if you do not know what your friend is going through, reach out to a professional for information. Because remember, there are many different kinds of therapy. There is CBT that focuses on your thoughts and your maladaptive thoughts. So if your friend you feel is being irrational in some way, and their thoughts are irrational, such as my husband must behave like this, otherwise I get depressed, or my organization, my boss must behave like this, otherwise I get irritated and angry. All that masturbation, we call it, is something that is cognitive behavior therapy can heal. So you need to understand, where do I take my friend? What kind of therapist do I need? If it's like an existential crisis, like if it's like, I feel like my life is just not, hasn't achieved what it needs to achieve. I feel like, I've been a failure. These are existential situations, and you can work. We have therapists who work with that. I mean, you need to focus on, what is it? If you think that there is a past history, that the childhood trauma or some trauma has caused this kind of behavior of the person, then it's not CBT or humanistic approach. Then it becomes psychoanalysis, and you have people who do psychoanalysis. So who do you go to for psychoanalysis? What does that mean? Is my person saying, oh, I'm like this only because, when my first relationship this happened, and then, I had this breakdown, and they're constantly reiterating that fact? Or even in business, my first business was not successful and I'm feeling really bad about that. Like, I mean, there was an advertisement by HDFC on like insurance and life insurance, which was to do with like failure and, boosting back to success. I was on that webinar once. It was televised webinar. Anyway, on that as well, the whole idea was, talk about your, even if you've had a failure, that doesn't define who you are. So that becomes psychoanalysis, and working on psychoanalysis, taking your friend to the right person is the most important, because you don't know what kind of therapy your friend requires, but you definitely, and just through this conversation, you definitely know that you can take somebody to a proper therapist. Like if they're having only problems, and this is another thing, if they're having only problems with their relationships, there's the systemic approach, which means that how do these relationships interact with each other? How do they interact with their family? How do they interact with the business in the business? How do they interact with their friends? So when we do life coaching, it's very essential for us to understand what is required. And in life coaching, of course, we can do all these different measures and we understand where the person comes from. But you, as an intermediary, as the link towards where they are and who they need to see, why don't you also do your research? So because none of this is about failure. It is about optimizing your mindset. It is about peak performance development. It's about getting beyond the blocks and the barriers that you have. And it's not about pagal hai, dimag kharab hai, and all these negative things that are happening. Because even you that are going through whatever you're going through can be it can be so helpful for you also to build the resources. So don't wait for failure. Use it as a preventive. Use it as preventive strategies, even for yourself, to learn these kind of things, to be able to help your colleagues, friends, etc. Because you are not going to switch your profession. So there are professionals, and learn a little bit about those professionals as an information. If somebody's come to you for information, give them that information. And I think one of the things we want to highlight, and everybody here who's learned counseling knows the difference between empathy and sympathy. And it is very important for you as friends to understand that you can be sympathetic and maybe a little bit of being able to relate to what the person is going through. But empathy requires the person who sees somebody drowning and they understand that they're drowning, but as a friend, you want to jump in, save them because you know how to swim. But as a counselor, we can see they're drowning. We throw the life buoy. We allow them to, hold on to that life buoy, and we pull them up to the shore. And that saves you and saves them. And you want to focus on empathy every time that you're talking to your friend. Of course, emphasize what they're going through, make them understand that you know what they're going through, but then share with them the right direction. And do not mislead them into believing that a friend, a family member can help them, because they are trained professionals.
Okay, so next question is, senior citizens, especially those living alone, must be burdened with massive anxiety. What advice do you have for them? Arushi, would you like to take this question?
Definitely. I think we need to. All of these questions are individualistic in nature. We need to understand: are these old people with support systems? Are these old people without support systems? And we need to understand what is the regulation that we can bring to their diet, to their food. What is it that we can engage their, day into? What are we doing with boundary setting as well for them? So I feel like what creates anxiety? Anxiety is a feeling that is created by our thoughts, right? And it is very easy for an old person who does not have much to do right now, maybe, to spiral into these thoughts. So I feel like we need to understand and look back at the now. What is it? How is it that you can feel supported? And what is causing you the anxiety? Is it called? What is the anxiety getting caused from? Because you're not getting essentials. Is that where your anxiety is coming from? Is it because you need to have certain a certain hobby that you're doing that needs to be inculcated into your everyday to help shift your thought patterns, to use the thought stopping technique? So I feel like exactly for a question like this is what we were saying. We believe that because all of our organizations are there, we need to understand there is always certain history that you need to take. There can be feelings and thoughts that are arising and anxieties out of the right now, which we will definitely address. But we need to come to understanding individualistically what is causing those. And that can only be done when we speak to the person personally, when I can ask you, कि क्यों हो रहा है, or and understand what is your history been, because advice is individualistic and we can't snap just a one for it all. That is not how therapy works. That if you're feeling anxious and you're old, hey, do these things and you will be good. And this is like the 5 things to attain entrepreneurship success, the 5 things that old people should do to not feel good. If you're feeling anxious and you realize that you're feeling anxious, pick up the phone, call support. Counseling helplines are available 24/7. including ours at Trijog, including the one that offered at, from YourDOST, including the Poddar Foundation. So please reach out to professional support. Take a half an hour session, take a 15-minute session, get strategies that are exactly for you, and then see how they are working. Because we all can sit here and give you generic ones, but I don't think anything any of us are dealing with is generic. It is very specific to you, your situation. And so many things matter to giving any sort of advice, guidance, or support in these situations. And if anybody else would like to add anything, please do.
Okay. So Richa, would you like to add to it? And Ms. Prakriti, would you like to add to it?
No, I think Arushi has beautifully covered. I think if you know, why for that individual, even I'm telling you, my parents are staying on their own. They're close to 70 now. And the kind of issues they face versus the kind of issue my father-in-law faces are very different. Right? So it's important for us to know what are they coming from, and a profession could really help them. But yeah, being connected, being talking about whatever they are going through does help.
Okay. So this was the last question from my side. Kritika, would you like to add? Would you like to ask any other question?
The questions I just gone through, it's all what we have already discussed about motivation, reinvent. So thank you so much everyone who joined us for this panel. This panel went long because you guys gave us a great insight, and it's going to help everyone, especially during this time. And I will definitely share all the links once we put this video out. Tomorrow we'll share the links with you guys also. Please do share from your side so that whoever wants to reach out, whoever wants to talk to you, we already got a great response. Thank you. Excellent time spent hearing you all. So everyone started putting in their comments. So thank you so much. Thank you, Arushi. Thank you, Prakriti. Thank you, Richa. And maybe next time this is the first time we did this, and I'm sure we'll get a great response after this. Maybe later I can start with the masterclass with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity and having us here.
See you.
Thank you so very much for connecting me with an old friend firstly, and giving the opportunity to serve on this panel, and also meeting a lovely soul, Richa, today, and belonging with both of y'all from RealtyNXT. So thank you so much. I hope everybody has a very blessed day ahead. All of my love and immense gratitude.
So before we sign off, I'll just quickly add few things very quickly. So first of all, I would like to thank our speakers for our insights. Thank you, Kritika, for moderating this session. Thank you to all the attendees for joining us. If you have any questions related to the topic discussed, or you have any questions for our speakers, please let us know. Or you want to associate with us for our upcoming series of webinars, you can write to us at info@realityNXT.com. This webinar has been recorded, and for people who couldn't join, we'll be uploading it on our social media platform. This event is brought to you by RealtyNXT. This is Rawat signing off.